Every night I rush to my bed with hopes that maybe I'll get a chance to see you. When I close my eyes, I'm going out of my head, lost in a fairy tale. Can you hold my hands and be my guide? Clouds filled with stars cover your skies, and I hope it rains. You're the perfect lullaby. What kind of dream is this? Sweet dream or a beautiful nightmare? Either way, I don't want to wake up from you.
Woo. All right. Welcome back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Swipe in the City. This is Marie, and Michelle is here with us today. And if you didn't get that, we've got a very special guest for everybody today. You want to introduce yourself super quick?
Yes, howdy. My name is Saint Spicer, and I am a professional vocalist and also a dating specialist at Vida Select.
Welcome, Saint. We are so stoked. I just want to listen to you sing. I'm like, fuck the podcast. Like, let's just listen to you sing all day. So, Marie, how are you? What's going on? Anything exciting to kick us off with?
I mean, just kind of going through the usual shit with work. Feeling really good about it, actually, and really loving like being back in the startup world, even in spite of all of its craziness. Also, really, I know I mentioned this on last week's episode, but really excited about Clubhouse. As Saint knows, she's also on Clubhouse with me. But I'm going to be hosting Bachelor watch parties every Monday night for The Bachelor. If you want to follow me, Marie R. Carlson, literally everywhere. It's for those of you who don't know, I've decided to fully put myself in quarantine. So Clubhouse has been a great way if you have an iPhone. To Michelle's point, if you have an iPhone, it's a great way to kind of connect with people. I know to connect with people. For me, as being like an antisocial social butterfly, it gives me like some of that need to meet new people while also feeling really safe in my own place, because I've been really anxious about everything going on with COVID, as y'all know. So it's a nice balance for me personally. But what's going on with you, Michelle?
Well, my head's in like 25 different places. Ultimately, per usual. Yeah. I've been doing this fun thing where I wake up between 4 and 6 a.m. with a very specific like work thought, which tells me that I need to take a little bit of a vacation or break. Like I'll literally wake up and I'll have like a marketing idea, or I'll think about like a contract I don't need to be thinking about at 4 a.m. So that's been a fun thing lately.
Can I interrupt for half a second?
Yeah.
My work gave me as a New Year's gift a $25 Airbnb gift card.
Wait, stop.
Hey, I'll take any amount of money. Like, you take what you can get. But, you know, if you want to take a little like long weekend, if you're willing to do a quarantine for me beforehand or a COVID test, we can go on a long weekend and just have a little.
Oh, okay.
Like Fredericksburg or something. I don't know.
We can talk about that. I didn't know that was like an option. We can talk about that. I would fucking love to like go do a weekend somewhere. Well, I'm like
with $25 on a work stipend.
Big spender.
You, me, and a bunch of bunkmates, like we're living in a hostel.
Oof.
I know. I know. I hope certain people don't listen to this podcast. Anyways,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm in a weird fucking headspace today, but I'm pumped because I've just had some really good work wins lately. And to be completely honest, like most of 2020, I don't want to say it was a wash, but like most of 2020, I was just like, I wasn't showing up mentally. Like I was going to work every day, but I wasn't showing up mentally, which is ironic because on pretty much every episode we've ever recorded, I tell people to show up for things. But that's life, right? Like those are some of the struggles we go through. That's part of like, I started therapy to try to work through some of that stuff. I'm taking a break from therapy because my therapist goes to the post office. But back in basically like in October, I had I had a really good call with my mom, and I also talked to a couple other people, but having this like call with my mom, and this is like such a weird term, no one will probably resonate. It won't resonate, but we just had to talk about like mindset, and not mindset in like the, I don't want to say like hippie way, but like mindset in the way that you like approach the things that you need to do and tackle. And for me, I was like having kind of a negative energy towards sales and this role and this change and some other things, and had like a really good conversation with my mom. And she was like, she coined the term, grab them and stab them, which,
and your mom is a master saleswoman. Let me just say.
My mom could literally like sell you something you own. Like she would convince you to rebuy something that's already in your home. She's a fucking 100%. Incredible. Yeah, at Daniela Hannah 68. No, but it's just been really interesting because from the point where I decided, okay, I'm gonna approach things differently. I'm gonna take a different lens to things and pushing like literally my whole like work life has shifted dramatically because of that. And I think that's like a really important thing. And it just kind of came to fruition this week because I am at 96% of my goal for the quarter.
Ooh, and hell yeah.
And I just got an email from a CEO at 5 a.m. this morning that they're going to move forward on a contract that puts me over my goal for the quarter. So I'm like, kind of freaking out.
All right.
By the way, it's January 30th and my quarter ends on March 31st.
Girl, get that money.
But yeah, in terms of dating, it's a shit show and I need to make some decisions. So let's move
on.
Cheers.
Yeah, on that note, yeah, cheers. You want to talk a little bit about what we're drinking?
I would love to. So, we're doing a double today. We're double recording. If you guys notice that we're in the same outfits and positions in our homes, but we just recorded with Rebecca from Lazarus, which is, if you did not hear that episode, go listen to it. There's like a ton of impactful shit there. So we are drinking 40 Days and 40 Nights. It's an American IPA. So it is like just a straightforward IPA. It's delicious. I love it. It's one of my favorite IPAs here in, I almost said Portland, Austin. And yeah, on that note, that's a super long intro.
We are also super excited, as we mentioned earlier, with today's guest, Saint Spicer. You want to introduce yourself? Give a little bit of a plug.
Yes. So my name is Saint. I am a professional vocalist. You know, in terms of genres, I sing all types of genres, but I'm definitely available on Spotify, Instagram, Spotify or Apple Music, Tidal, wherever you get your music. And then in terms of what I do to get the bag right now, because there are no live performances happening, I do sales for a dating company called Vida Select. And Vida Select's kind of tagline is online dating done for you. So what I'm hoping to chat a little bit about today is what will make what kind of are the things that I deal with, as well as, you know, answer any questions about my area of expertise.
I love that. So Saint, tell us, just for some context for our audience, are you currently single, dating, taking a break in a relationship?
Yes.
What was Facebook? It's complicated back in the day.
Yes, that's a good question. So I am taken. I am in a wonderful relationship with Steven. He's my boyfriend, and he's out of town right now in Dallas helping his mom move because he's a good
Aw.
son and a good boyfriend and a good person.
And you live with him, right? He's super sweet.
Yes, we live together in a house in the south of Austin.
Love it. And so I think in relation, and I didn't really anticipate, but like in relation to your current relationship, like how did y'all meet?
Oh gosh.
Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, I am. So in terms of how we met, we were just neighbors at our previous apartment complex, which was low-key in the ghetto. It's fine. But
wait a minute. So you met in real life?
Yeah, we met in real life, not just in real life, but during quarantine in real life. Technically, quarantine was already going down.
I'm a little triggered, but that's a story for a different time. Please go on.
So yeah, and we, as you can tell, it's just January and quarantine started in March, so we moved pretty quickly. But you know, it's working out.
So because this is like a theme today, which obviously these episodes won't be released today, but here we are. Can you maybe talk a little bit about, you said you moved quickly. Was that like was that kind of a factor of quarantine and living situations, or was that tell us maybe a little bit more as to like how and why, if you're open to it?
Sure. So in terms of quarantine being a factor, it definitely was. But for me specifically, the reason why I got into a relationship quickly and took things to where they are quickly is because I came in knowing exactly what I wanted out of a partner, and what my red flags were and how I wanted to be treated. And so I felt comfortable immediately, like all of my needs were met immediately. And then there were some bonuses, which was the synergy that we have together. So like when we encounter a problem, we come up with a solution that is better than what each of us could have individually thought of on our own. And so that is what made me be like, okay, I want to be in a relationship with Steven. And then in terms of moving in together, yeah, it's just price. We spent a lot of time together during quarantine, which definitely contributed to the comfort level, being able to move in together. But also, like, we lived next door, so it wasn't hard to see each other, and it just felt like it would be okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was like waiting. I was like, Marie, I don't want to keep like interrupting.
No,
but,
you looked like you had something to say, so I was gonna wait.
So that's super interesting because one of our podcast hero, Jared Freed, our meme and bachelor hero, Jared Freed, he talks about how like quarantine has like either it's accelerated things either in a positive or negative way, which I also like. I found out that one of my coworkers who I like know, like I used to hang out with him and his now ex-fiance. But I just like found out yesterday that they split during this time. And it's like, it's interesting because it really accelerates things because you're either spending all the time together or no time together. One thing I wanted to touch on though, is like you said, you knew what you wanted. And I would love to like unpack that just a little bit. Maybe not just like, oh, you knew you wanted X or Z or X, Y, or Z, but like how that applies to other people. Oh, Marie's raising her hand. Go ahead, girl.
I know. I'm raising my hand because I know this is something like, this is what Saint and I had discussed of like really being like the meat of this. Right. And I think it's a good like addition to everything that we talked about with Bex. For those of you listening last week, for us right now, like 5 seconds ago.
Like,
but
one
like,
Zoom call
we
ago.
were literally just talking about this. So I think it's perfect. So I kind of just want to get into things if that's okay with you guys.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Okay.
So, I mean, first things first here, saying if you could give us a little bit more context about Vida and like everything that you're doing there, how you're helping people, what's going on.
Right. So Vida Select was founded in 2009, and our founder slash CEO is Scott Valdez. And, he was just a hardworking kid in UGA in Atlanta when he just started taking a more systematic data-driven approach to online dating. And he just kind of threw everything. Yeah, he kind of threw everything at the wall. And just to see what stuck. And essentially, he was tracking everything in spreadsheets at the time. And so,
oh my God.
Yeah. And he got to the point where he was like, I would love for someone else to do this. And so he actually he put up an ad on Craigslist and taught someone else to do it. And that person really put their heart and soul into it, and expanded the amount of data that he had. So 12 years later, we've kind of grown up from that. We serve, thousands of clients each year, and both men and women, a lot of people tend to think that it's just for men, but it is not. I would say almost half of our clients are women. And, the main thing that is most important to know about us is that we're very data driven, and that's been something from the start. Everything that we're doing is using psychology, data, science to actually get you to someone who is a good fit for you in the shortest amount of time.
I'm obsessed with this. I did not do my research ahead of time. I'm obsessed with this whole concept.
Did you guys hear about the girl who went viral on TikTok because of her spreadsheet? She was talking about her spreadsheet that she had created, and she detailed the guys that she matched with on dating apps, and then where it went from there. Did they get a drink? How many dates did they go on? Apparently, one of the things that she found was if she got to the third or fourth date, they would continue dating longer than that. So kind of interesting, but it was just funny to me. I was listening to it on, of course, You Up, Jared Fried, our our person. They were talking about this, and she was just she was data driven. And so it was almost to a fault, I feel in the way that they had framed it. But I feel there is a lot of truth to knowing what you want, right?
Right, absolutely. I think the main benefit of what it sounds like this girl is doing is not just knowing what you want, but just bringing consciousness and awareness to what you're doing and what your patterns are. So when people schedule a call with me through Vida Select, they're booking online through the website, vidaselect.com, and they're scheduling some time with a matchmaking expert. And so I call them at that specific time. And the very first thing that we are going over is demographic preferences. And you would be surprised how many men tell me, oh, I don't know what I want, blah, blah, blah. Women as well, but on my calls, I mostly deal with men. And so when you don't have any awareness over what you tend to be attracted to, that's when you become kind of a victim of circumstances.
Ooh.
Okay, I want you to keep going with this, but I'm nodding because obviously some people can't see it because you're listening, but it's so interesting because I think one quick point on that is that if you like what you like, and just knowing what you do and don't like is important, but also, or what you're attracted to, or what you see and you're oh shit, okay. But also I feel it's a factor in it's a factor in what happens when, I feel women do this more than men, where we're well, I'm not immediately attracted to him, but but he's cool, so I'm going to hang out with him 6 times. And then ultimately, like, the attraction doesn't build because there's just not that, like, connection there, or they're not not to say people don't date outside their type, but then they end up friend zoning the person anyways. And by
no,
they,
I think
it's me.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's a lot of holy shit. Did you guys hear that?
So yes. I heard it on your recording and from my door.
Dang.
Marie and I live in the same building, if people didn't know, and we're recording from our separate apartments. So we've been hearing the same sirens and like motorcycle sounds.
But that was real fucking loud. Anyway, I like lost my train of thought. I think what I was saying was, Michelle, to your point, I think that's a thing that a lot of women do, because we have this thing in our mind of like, it takes a while to like build and like find somebody that we really like, and I don't know, like whatever bullshit. And I'm also thinking like what we're hearing lately is like a theme of just kind of when you know too. So there's a lot of juxtaposition here. And again, and that wasn't really exactly my thought, but I completely lost it due to Riverside.
Here am I. So sorry, Saint. Yeah, if you wanna keep going on that. So like you were
yeah, we might cut that.
What you were saying is that basically the first step is trying to help people even like understand the demographics or like the things they're attracted to at a let's call it like a phase 1.
Right. Yeah. So knowing what you're attracted to is one part of it. Also knowing that's the easiest part, right? So bringing light to that. And the other part of it, which is just as important, I would say more important, is knowing what you are willing to put up with. So yep. When I say that, I mean, we ask about physical qualities all the time. You know, if you are only attracted to Caucasian women, then I know that I'm wasting my time showing you women who are Hispanic or who are African American. So I need to know that right away so that we know how big the pool of people we have to look through is. And these preferences that people have, I notice sometimes people feel awkward talking about ethnicity, but it's just, you have to be so honest with yourself. I myself am a Black woman. And if you tend to date a certain ethnicity, just be honest about it. Don't waste someone else's time because you're like trying to figure out your own interests. Like if you're a guy and you're coming up to me and you're like, oh, I mostly like white women, but I'd be willing to try, you know, someone else of a different race. Yeah, just stick with what you like. No one's asking you to be Captain Save-A-Ho here.
Captain Save-A-Ho.
Oh
my God. Can we hashtag that?
Yeah. Also, I like chuckled because in my throat because someone that I've talked to is like, he made a huge point of like, he's Black and he made a huge point of telling me that like he doesn't date white girls and his family would be shocked to know that he's dating white girls. And I didn't flag that as a red flag, but now that you mention it, I'm like, feels like it kind of is.
It certainly is. You're not someone's experiment. It's dehumanizing of you. Like that person is using you as like you're basically tokenizing. And that's not a red flag because like, oh, tokenizing is like a thing. It's a red flag because what that means is that person is not treating you. That person doesn't view you in the same way that they view other people. And that's in a negative way, right? So you need to draw the line in the sand on that. You're not someone's experiment.
Well, and I think especially just given all the publicity and the political everything about what's going on, I think some people probably feel weird saying like, oh, I prefer this skin color to this skin color. Yes. Which probably complicates things for you.
I don't let it get complicated because I don't know. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I view each person as a human being. And if you really find that for whatever reason you're attracted to a certain person because of their culture or their skin color or whatever, do you. I don't need you to like Black women. If you are the type of person who doesn't like Black women, bye. We don't need you. Who cares? Move on. I'm going to get your money and move on.
Get that money.
Well, and what you're saying is like when you say like move on, you just mean in terms of someone coming to you, like you're gonna just match them towards their preferences.
Right. Yeah. So if
versus
someone
like
comes,
not your personal dating, but like when you're talking about matching.
Right.
Exactly. I guess I should separate that. So yeah, when a client comes to me and they say that they don't like Black women, people always ask me, do I take that personally? The answer is no. Like if this person doesn't like Black women probably aren't needing this person to like them. So like it's not a big deal at all. Just go for what you like. We will accommodate that at Vida Select. And that's all there is to it.
Okay, so Saint, from your experience as what's your official, are you a matchmaker? Are you a dating coach? What should we refer to you as?
Right. So my job title is like a matchmaking expert. I'm not necessarily or like a matchmaking advisor. So I can get you pointed to the right matchmaker, but I'm not a matchmaker.
Got it. Okay. Love that. So this question may or may not make a ton of sense for you, but are there particular sites, like websites or apps that people should choose to like start with based on either like their age or their priorities? So for example, one thing that's really interesting in Austin in particular, I feel like there's a more blurred, not like line, but like dating ages here seem to be more overlapping than in like when I was in Portland. Like I feel like 25-year-olds will date 40-year-olds or like 28-year-old. I don't know. It just seems like there's more overlap. But in general,
Austin's a weird city.
If we're making generalizations, like are there particular sites or apps that are better for different age groups, and or are there particular sites or apps that are better for different end goals?
Right. So this kind of ties back into, knowing what you're looking for. So I'm just going to cover some key demographics that are really important to your search. So age range, how old you are and how old the range you're looking at is really important. Geolocation and search radius is really important. So if you're in a rural area, you will probably need to go to a big city at some point, or at least close to one. Another one that people don't think about as often is whether or not you would be willing to date someone with kids. And not just with kids, but with really young kids. Of course, you need to think about whether you're looking for something long-term or not, because if you are looking for something long-term, you need to look for someone else who is also looking for something long-term. Very important. Not a lot of people think about that, so it warrants being said out loud. And then other demographic things that can sometimes really impact the sites that you choose are things like career, hobbies and interests, religion, of course, and then a big one that is becoming more and more important to a lot of people, financial stability. And finances in general. So all of these factors are important to different people. So, if I've got a guy who is 50 years old and he is looking to start a family again, and he, makes $250K a year. Here's what he probably wants. He probably wants someone who is quote unquote young enough to have kids. And so there are a lot of things around that, but guys who tell me this, they're looking in the 25 to 35 range. And this guy is pretty old, right? He's 50. So we would encourage him to extend his search up to 40 and include people who already have kids, most likely that's what you'd want if you're wanting to start a family together with somebody. But, depends on the person. And building out a profile of this like imaginary human being a little bit more, he is used to a certain lifestyle. So he's used to spending the amount of money that he has. And so it would probably be more appropriate for him. It would feel better for him if he was dating someone who was used to that kind of lifestyle and maybe even could support him in his lifestyle. So he probably has income preferences. And then that doesn't even touch on the attractiveness thing. So when you're thinking about a search for this guy, the factors that are most important are, of course, age, occupation, income, geolocation. And since he's looking for something long-term, all of this together is pointing us towards a specific website normally. If you're looking for something long-term and you are, 35 and above, probably going to steer you to a website. If you are looking, however, for someone young, say maybe 35 and below, that would steer you to an app. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. I would say something really important to note also is that geolocation does matter. So you mentioned a difference between Portland and Austin. And it's true that women here do tend to date older men more so than in other places. And so thinking about getting an older man in Austin on an app isn't necessarily a bad move, whereas in another city, it probably wouldn't be smart. So there's so many things that go into it.
So what kind? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I love the Zoom thing, right? So what if you were to recommend somebody for a specific app, like say we'll just talk about people who are looking within their own demographic. Like,
right,
we're in our upper 20s here, early 30s. What would you recommend in terms of, because we also had kind of discussed different apps for different end games.
Mm-hmm. Right. So obviously Tinder is not where we send people to look for long-term, satisfying, lasting relationships. And this is, of course, not to say that it's not possible, because it absolutely is. I DJ'd for a couple that met on Tinder at their wedding. It's just
they probably met on Tinder a while ago.
Exactly. So it's just to say, if you're looking for something long-term, we usually steer people towards something like a Hinge or a Coffee Meets Bagel, especially if you're like in the younger techie crowd. But, it definitely matters whether you're looking for something long-term or you're just looking for something casual. If education was important to you, or even something like career, I would point you towards the League, simply because they tend to have a little bit more screening. But, the League isn't the end all be all when it comes to these apps. There are a couple more services that are a little bit more selective. And if you are someone who income is really, really important, there are apps like Luxy or Millionaire Match. And, there are even some private apps for folks who are invited and who are kind of well-known in the entertainment industry. So there are a lot of options for young folks in their late 20s, early 30s. But because you guys grew up on computers and most of y'all have iPhones and know how to use them, you're probably going to be on an app.
Not all of us have iPhones.
Oops. Yes, sorry. Smartphone.
I guess that's where this episode ends. Just kidding. This is super interesting. So I'm curious how does like the Vida Select service play into the apps? Right? Like, do y'all like consult? So I work for like a digital marketing agency, right? And so we're not Google advertising. We consult and manage that. So I'm just curious, like for you guys, what is your role in actually like managing those types of things?
Right. So we just manage the profiles on those. We just ask clients to allow us access to those platforms, and then we manage them on their behalf. We're not affiliated with them in any way.
So do y'all manage like messaging for
We
people?
do.
Are you? Today's like the best day. Today's like surprise. Today's like surprise podcast, like Easter egg day. Okay, I didn't know that. I'm fascinated by that. But I don't want to detract us from like some of the other stuff that we were talking about. So, maybe we go to more of like the general tips, and then I'll let my little questions fester.
Right. So in terms of general tips this is all available on our website as well. Our website is such an amazing resource for people who are just looking for free information on online dating. Goodness, matter of fact, I know that y'all have talked about this on this podcast before. Don't send your life story via message. Just get in there and get out. Another important thing that you are completely forgiven for not knowing as an online dater, but you are not putting out information about yourself online. You are putting out information designed to attract the type of person that you want to meet. So that is even more important. I know that on this podcast, you talked about attracting the woman or attracting the man. But it's even more important to clarify, you're not just attracting any woman or any man, you're attracting the person that you want to meet. A good example of kind of like not following this is a guy who came and told me that he wanted, to, good bless his heart, to take some new pictures, and he's looking for a woman to be his lady at home, and he's taking pictures of him in an airplane.
Hold on, I'm sorry. He's looking for someone to be his lady at home.
Yes, he's looking for a woman
housewife?
who can be, a housewife for him. Hey, I don't yuck other people's yums.
No judgment.
Sorry. Okay,
no
sorry.
judgment.
No judgment.
That was rude. That was rude of me.
It's not our cup of tea, but if that's what he wants,
no problem. And I mean, hey, it is what it is, right? I get the weirdest stuff, but
Michelle chugs her beer.
She's like, God damn it. No, but so yeah, he's looking for someone to be a housewife, and he's taking pictures of him flying in an airplane with his friend, skydiving, top golfing. And I ask him, you're sitting here complaining to me, saying that you had a horrible time in this airplane ride and that you are afraid of heights, and now you're going skydiving for a photo. So like, what type of woman do you think is going to be interested in this? Because you just spent 5 minutes complaining to me about women who are after you for your money and think that you just want to travel the world. And yet here you are taking photos that suggest that you live that lifestyle. So just be clear, be honest, be yourself, and know that whatever you do is going to attract a certain type of person. So make sure that you are cleaned up.
Well, that's so interesting because, you think about the way that you portray yourself on social media. Dating apps are kind of an extension of how you are on social media for a lot of people. And that's so funny because it's like he's doing these things. He thinks like, oh, like I'm skydiving, therefore I'm going to get women who want to stay at home with my kids. I don't understand the way that works personally, but I feel like it still kind of ties into like, oh, I want to portray myself as being this type of person. Mm-hmm. And yet in real life, and what I'm looking for is this other type of person. That's so interesting.
It's because he's putting himself in the game. And this is what I would recommend if you are doing dating apps is take your little self and all your feelings and everything out of it, step out of the dating game. It is literally not about you. So before you even put your hands on a phone or a computer and start typing in your little profile, Write down with a pen and a paper what has worked for you in past relationships and what hasn't. Come up with a list of things that you need, a must-have, and a deal breakers list, and build out a profile of your ideal person. Make a wish list. And then when you get onto the apps, do not put any information about yourself, quote unquote. You are not representing yourself. You are attracting that person, and you'll always tell the truth, right? You're not going to make up information about you that isn't true, but you're only going to put forth things designed to attract this person. And what that's going to do is it's going to make you be emotionally more detached. It's not about you, it's about the other person.
Can you give us a quick example of like, if say I am like 30 something, I'm looking to attract I don't know, like well-to-do, but like a badass dude that has a good job, isn't totally revolving his life around the job, but all right. Moral of the story, you know me. What would I like, in your opinion, what should I put on a dating app to attract some guy that would be like a good guy for me?
Right. So I know you, but I don't necessarily know what would make you happy in a relationship. So are you looking for a guy? Well, are you looking for something long-term committed?
Yeah.
Are you looking for this guy to be able to contribute financially to your life, or at least carry his own weight?
Carry his own weight, at least. Yeah.
Are you looking for this to be someone with a career trajectory?
Yeah. I want him to at least like his job. Okay.
And let me think. I think those are the main things that are important. I mean, if I were you and I were putting together a photo lineup, for example, there would be picture of you and Luna at Lazarus.
Of course.
Starbucks. You with Starbucks. And really pool time. And you with your headset, maybe. Kitties. The reason why we're showcasing the things that you do in your hobbies so heavily is because we're emphasizing, yes, you work, but work hard, play hard, right? And
Right.
If you get a profile of somebody that you're looking at, for example, you're looking at a guy's profile and you're considering whether or not you want to date him, and you're looking at the photos of him and you're like, oh, well, he's up on top of a mountain and here he is like at a vineyard. But here he is with his buddies, and his shirt's off and they're wearing like green paint at the paintball range.
Oh God.
Okay. Or like I happen to know that you like firearms, but a lot of women don't. If he was at the gun range, like these are all things that are indicating to you, one, that he doesn't spend a lot of time at work. You know, it could be a good balance for you, but that maybe his values and the way he spends his time isn't exactly the same as you. Do you want to be up on top of a mountain with this person? Do you want to be in the gun range?
I'm going to be on top of a mountain.
Well, there you go. But if, a guy who works a lot, it'll show in the pictures. All the photos will be of him, being formal at a formal event, spaced out, buddies. It becomes really clear if you got a lot of selfies. There are things that are indicators.
I think those are like really good tips. Michelle, it looks like you have something to say.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm like processing through, and I like this idea of thinking more about what you want to attract versus here I am. This is Michelle. This is who she is. Like, because obviously I'm going to be who I am in any of that, but it's like a thing that came to mind. You mentioned like a shooting range, or like for me, it's like all the funny memes about like saying you're outdoorsy. People, I think some women say they're outdoorsy because they feel like they should be, but they don't actually want to go do those things, right? So It's like saying you liked, also, this is so random, but I've been thinking a lot about like how I volunteered at Awesome Pets Alive and like how they matchmake people with dogs. Because I've had a couple of friends, it's relevant, I promise. I've had a couple of friends message me recently about like, oh, I'm going to meet this dog. I have an interview. I need advice or things like that. And I literally told my friend, I was like, when you go to your interview, be honest about your lifestyle because ultimately what they're doing is they're going to try to match you with a dog that fits your lifestyle because some dogs are insanely like need to run 6 miles a day. And if you're a marathoner, that's fucking perfect. If you wake up at noon, this is not a bad thing, but if you wake up at noon on a Saturday, you watch Netflix for 6 hours, and then you go to the bar across the street, you don't want that marathoner dog. That's not a match for you. And I know this is such a weird example. It's just like so relevant because I've talked to like a few people lately where I'm like, no, being honest about not who, like, not like, oh, this is the person I want to be. I want to be the guy that runs. Like, I would love to be the bitch that wakes up at 6 a.m., goes for a 3-mile run. My dog is like perfectly trained at the dog park. I'm never hungover on a weekday. That's not me. Like, that's not who I am. So it's like, I love this concept of actually thinking through positioning yourself for what you want to attract, and really thinking through like lifestyle. And yeah.
Well, and I think there's a certain level too of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, especially when it comes to social media, we're kind of, in a sense, portraying who we want to be, who we want to be perceived as. However, when it comes to dating, and Michelle, to your point, like when it comes to the right dog that's going to fit your lifestyle, if you adopt a dog that's the wrong fit for you, the worst thing that happens is you give that dog back up for adoption, which is fucking horrible for the dog, right? The worst thing that happens in a relationship is you break up.
Or you
years. Or you waste years. And I'm like, I feel like it's worse. I feel like it's worse if you adopt the wrong kind of dog.
We get a lot of turns, and it's really sad because it's usually a misalignment.
Well, exactly. But I feel like we don't look at dating in that way. And a lot of people aren't looking at adopting a dog in that way. And we're putting everything on Hinge, on Bumble, on whatever dating app it is. We're trying to portray the person that we want people to think we are versus, to Saint's point, like the person that we want to attract. So long-winded way of like, how do we break, like as a person, like how do I look at my profile and like break away from that? Because it's kind of a barrier.
Right. So that's why I was saying before you even touch a computer, write it down. But, if you're already in it and you're just looking to revise your profile, the number one thing you can do is take yourself out of the picture. And I know that this is hard for people. They're worried about presenting themselves and what people, kind of like what you said about Instagram, they want to be seen a certain way. But this really isn't about being perceived in a certain way. This isn't a social media platform where everyone's judging you or anything like that. This is actually a platform where you get to go fishing. And so the fish do not care who the fisherman is. They don't care at all. They do not give a flying F. The fish does care what the heck is on the end of that hook. So you best be sure that you have the right bait up for the kind of fish that you want to catch, or you're going to end up with some weird thing. If you put a sock on the end of that line, not only are you not going to catch any fish, but you might get some really weird stuff coming up on the other end. And if you put a worm, you're going to get a fish that eats a worm. It's very straightforward. But when we are saying, oh, here I am on online dating, do you like me? That hurts. The rejection hurts when someone says they don't like you. So stop putting yourself on the dating profile. Put out the person that you know is going to attract the person that you want. And then when you go looking, look for your boxes.
So, kind of slightly the same, but slightly different. With managing this search, right, as somebody on dating apps. And I think like you and I have talked about how like a lot of people don't know what they want. So how does somebody really hone in and figure that out if they're trying to make that wish list?
Right. So look at who you've dated in the past, and be honest about it. If you look at your past 10 dates and they're all, Latino women, then you probably like Latino women. Let's keep going with that. If you notice a trend, for example, I have a friend who always says, I always date crazy women. Okay, well, what do you like about crazy women? Because clearly there's something that keeps you coming back. And what is it about it that you don't like? So maybe you can find, okay, what I like about crazy women is that they're spontaneous, they are emotive, they're passionate. And what I quote unquote don't like about crazy women, which let's be honest, they all like us. What I quote unquote don't like about crazy women is that there's drama. Then you know that you value passion, you value emotion, and you don't value drama. So you're just going to have to look for that in a first date. So look at your history, look at what has worked for you in the past and what hasn't. And I would say this is something that made a big difference for me personally. And if you can do it, look for an example of a good relationship. And this is so hard because, yeah, exactly. So few of us have these good relationships or even know where to go find them. But if you can see a good example of a good relationship with two people who genuinely love each other, when you see it. And when you do, look at the qualities that make that relationship successful, because humor is going to be one of them. Respect is going to be one of them. Long-term vision. And these are all qualities you should add to your list.
And so what about this list? Because I feel like, and this is something I feel like I talk to people who are either on one end of the spectrum where they don't have a list, right? And they're just on the apps, dating, doing whatever. Then there's the other end of the spectrum where they have such a specific set of like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And if you don't match these things, then fuck you. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? How do you come up with a list that's both specific and also not specific?
This is such a deep question, but you're going to have to look at your values and look at the things that are most important to you. A lot of people don't know their values, so they're not going to be able to put together a good list of values, let alone a good list of a person they're looking for. But you really need to look at your values. And, someone with a list that has like one thing on it, I want one thing, that person probably, I don't know, if you're someone who is really open-minded and that's one of your key values and you trust the universe and you want the universe to bring you something, then yeah, go for it, have one thing on your list. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you have 50 things on your list and you're looking for an anime character, then I really like a cartoon character, like, you're looking for someone who doesn't exist essentially, then, you really have to think hard about whether those things are important to you. I suggest prioritization. And I would also think about, straight up whether or not you're being selfish. Just, focusing on you and what you want and not focusing on you, what you bring to the table. Because if you focus more on what you brought to the table, you probably wouldn't need someone to be bringing 50 things into the relationship, right? You'd probably only need a couple things.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I was just going to say it's interesting because I feel like the term selfish, right? Like it's such a double sword, right? Like we say like you need to be selfish in relationships because you have to take care of yourself. And then we look at, well, are you just not willing to compromise or give or you know, I think sacrifice is an extreme word, but I think what's interesting is looking at like what are the things you actually need? Like what are the things that you need to feel satisfied in dating and a relationship versus what are the things that maybe you're being like, and when I say you again, I like refer back to myself, like being a brat about like what I need is a certain amount of attention. What I'm being a brat about is someone who is going to give me attention exactly when I want it. Like their schedule maps to mine.
Well, it was like you and I were talking about, like, so anybody who doesn't know what I do, I'm essentially like a sales SDR role for a company that helps people buy houses. So I'm in real estate, basically. So one of the things that we talk about is that home buyer, what is their list of, like, they have their needs, like they need a kitchen, they need X, Y, and Z. What are their must-haves? What are their wants? And then the other thing there, and Michelle, I know like you've been in real estate too, and you can relate to this, like, what are the like would be nice, like what's on the would be nice list. And so like separating these different things and realizing like, okay, like I need, for me to feel fulfilled in this relationship, I need this amount of attention for you. For me to feel like, I don't know, even more than that, then I need this and X, Y, and Z, and it goes from there, right? Sorry, rant over. But I think that is kind of coming up and like maybe diversifying those lists in a way that is like, you can actually look at it and be like, okay, like, well, yes, I want this, but what I need is this.
Yes, and that the ability to do that
it's hard.
I was gonna
subordinate
say
your wants to your needs is so important, but that is the number one thing that is not only going to make your search successful, it's going to make your relationship successful, it's going to make your life successful, and it's going to lead you down a path of love versus a path of selfishness.
And one of the other things there too that I wanted to mention that I think plays a big role into like what's the need, what's the want, what's the must have, is the motivation behind it. And I think that's something, Saint, can you speak a little to that?
You mean the motivation behind, you know, what actually could you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, like, so okay, so I want let's say a guy that has that he loves his job. So one of the things that like we've kind of touched on slightly is just what's the motivation? Why do I want a guy that wants that? Well, I mean, in my case, like I can say for myself, like it's because that I enjoy what I do, right?
Right.
So for other things and for things that aren't quite so like obvious, is kind of figuring out, well, all right, so I like a guy with X, Y, and Z. Like, why do I like a guy with that?
Right. Yeah. That asking a why question is pretty important because you may find out once you ask why that something else would work just as well. For example, you know, if you are telling me that you really, really need a woman of a certain age, and then I find out it's because you're retired and you want to be able to travel with someone and you want someone else who's retired, then maybe we could open that pool up and say, okay, you want to travel. That's why you want someone who's retired. Well, we can actually open this pool up to people who aren't retired, but who have a job that allows them to travel very often, works remotely.
There you go.
I love that example. I love that example because it really does. It like ties back into, again, the why, right? And this, it's funny because Marie and I working in sales, like when we get objections or when we get certain things, it's like, okay, why are you asking that? And in dating and with dogs or all of the things, right? It's like, if we can understand why you think you need this, that may be a factor, right? Like some people feel like they need stability to fulfill something that could be fulfilled in a different way. So, yeah, I just really like that perspective, and I like that idea of looking at it. I think it's hard too. It's just, I think I struggle personally with going back and forth between like needs and wants.
I think a lot of people do.
But I also feel like in a former life, I don't want to say sacrifice, but I was like, oh, these things that are actual needs for me to be like satisfied in a relationship. I was like, oh, well, those are just like things that, you know, whatever, don't matter.
Would be nice.
But those were actual things that like I needed. And so I think it's tough to come to those terms, but I think the most important thing anyone who's like single and dating can do is, again, if you have not tried therapy, I don't want to say don't use the person. She helped me with a lot of things, but consider it. And also just like consider being a little bit more introspective and really taking a hard look, because also one of the things that I've done is look at who I am to other people in dating and relationships. And sometimes that's hard to, sometimes it's like hard to look at how you, I don't want to say, like, I don't feel like I ever treat other people poorly, like, especially not intentionally. But looking at the ways that I have like ignored other people's needs or things like that, I think being just as much like as self-aware as you can be is super important.
Yes, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. It is totally hard. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect in any point of my life, and everyone is continually making mistakes. But anytime you can bring awareness to it is good. Knowing your love languages is very good, because if you find that you need, you value time with somebody, and that person is a workaholic, you're probably not going to get what you want, even if they want to give it to you. And so love languages is important. And also just the fundamental values that make a relationship work, like a genuine caring for another person. Because if someone is showing you that they're incapable of subordinating their wants for a need, even if it's their own need, then you can be sure that that's going to be a recurring theme.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I feel like, there's a lot of compromises, obviously, that happen in relationships, no matter what kind of relationship that is. And I think just keeping that in mind is a huge thing. On that note, Saint, do you have any final words? I feel like this is a good spot to kind of like wrap things up. I think we can go on some future episodes, have you back on here and like kind of dig into some of these things. But any final notes, any words of wisdom for our listeners?
I would just say, of course, thanks y'all for both having me on, but
happy to have you.
There's no you're not perfect, and the person you're looking for isn't going to be perfect either, but there are things that you need to live happily. So just be honest about what those are, and then everything else, yes, is a compromise. Women, don't compromise too much though.
Also, men, get your shit together. just kidding. It's funny. I know so many dope ass men who like have their shit together, and they continue to deal with like just
bullshit.
And it goes all the ways, but it's, I don't know. Dating is hard. Relationships are hard. Dating is hard. Being a fucking adult in 2020 and 2021 is hard.
First time.
It's tough.
First quarantine.
Right? Baby's first quarantine.
This really is my first rodeo.
Saint, where can people find you if they want to get in touch, ask you questions, or of course, listen to your music because it's dope?
You can slide into my Insta DMs. I am at Saint Said So, and There's also a link in my bio that has all of my songs, which are available on every platform that you could imagine.
She does write her own music, y'all.
Ooh,
She may have let in with Beyonce, but she's brilliant.
And then if you are looking for us, you can find us on pretty much every platform. Swipe N the City, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, SoundCloud, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Honestly, if you're trying to reach us, send us a DM on Instagram or email us at swipennthecity.
Don't email us.
I mean, you can, but
all right,
honestly,
yeah, you can.
DM us on Instagram. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Just one thing I want people to keep in mind is if you respond to our story or DM us and one of us sees it, the other person will not see it. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I'm like, I love when people DM us, but sometimes you're like, oh, so-and-so DM'd us. And I'm like, who? What? Huh?
I literally have to like send screenshots of our DMs to Marie to like convey what's happening. But on that note, Saint, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so stoked. You have a really interesting perspective and level of insight. So I'm just amped that you are here today, and I can't wait to have you back.
Thanks, y'all. I appreciate it. It was super fun. And thanks, Swipe in the City listeners, for letting me have your ear for a few minutes.
Oh, will you sing us out on something?
Yeah.
Oh,
please.
Another
please no.
Just a little tune. Just a little tune.
We're going on a trip in our favorite rocket ship, zooming through the sky, little Einsteins.
Yes.
On that note, bye, y'all.
Love it. Bye, y'all. Cheers.